battalion decides they're going to split us up into 4 rifle platoons instead of 3 rifle platoons and a weapons platoon. So we integrate into 1st platoon, my squad leader Z-Rabbit and I. And so he asks me, he says, do you want to come with me to 2nd squad, you know, or are you comfortable being in a squad on your own? And I'm like, not me, daddy, like, let's go. So I was like, no, I want to go to my own squad. He's like, all right, great. So he sets me up with Poker. Poker is a squad leader, and he's going on his 3rd deployment. He was an 04 ISCAN vet and an 05, 06 HIT vet. And then this 07 deployment was going to be his 3rd deployment. And so actually at the time he was still a Lance Corporal. And you know, the other cats that were in the squad were Dirtbag. He was a boot team leader and a hell of a rifleman. He was just absolutely just lethally proficient, but just got shit on by the senior Marines for, I don't know, no reason. But then we had Mike Tyson. Tyson was a Golden Gloves boxer before he joined the Marine Corps, and he was sort of like America's sweetheart, you know, all American, you know, big, handsome, fit, and he was a machine gunner. Then we had Napoleon Dynamite. He was a strange cat. He had gray hair at like 19 and was super smart, but just incredibly awkward and weird, and just didn't really mesh with anybody. Then we had Princess. Princess was the guy who joined the Marine Corps, you know, like in between his junior and senior year, goes to boot camp, and then, you know, goes to his senior prom in his dress blues. Dude, that's an ultimate flex. But so he was a Lance Corporal already, and so then we have Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong was my team leader. He was a machine gunner, and we used to call Donkey Kong many names, all of them, because when he would jump up and down in PT gear, it would just so then we have Shrek, you know, so we've got Donkey and Shrek. Shrek is the other team leader. He's an 11, and he's a pretty solid guy. He's, you know, done the HIT deployment, and you know, he's the only other, you know, team leader, you know, who can really pull some weight. Then we had Waldo. Waldo was from Indiana. He was a little bit real laid back, real cool guy. He was the guy who he was going to take his junior Marines and put his arm around them and, you know, be their buddy. And, you know, he was a solid guy. Next we had Rip, and so this guy, he originally was going to go to recon, and for whatever reason they dropped him from Rip to the fleet, and so he gets to the fleet and almost immediately goes to Iraq to hit, and then he goes with us. Next we have Jeezy. Jeezy was our platoon commander. Jeezy was a D1 college basketball player and just an all-around stud. He was, you know, like 6'2", 6'3", just big, ripped, kind of talked like this. One day I saw him in the gym, our makeshift gym, and this was on deployment, but you know, we had just a shit array of equipment and dumbbells, and so he's sitting there with his back up against the wall doing strict form, you know, 80-pound dumbbell curls, and he sees me just jaw on the ground, And I look at him, and he takes his earbud out, and he goes, "Hey, Churchill, you know how you get this big?" Like, no, sir. How do you get that big? And he goes, "Protein and young Jeezy." Throws his earbud back in and just starts going back to town. And the wildest thing is he was one of the most lethally proficient Marines I've ever served with in my entire life. And he's still out there doing big, great things. The next guy I'm going to tell you about, this guy is Prince. So Prince was he was born in Africa. He was from Sierra Leone, and he claimed that he was a Prince of Africa. And so I actually went through boot camp and School of Infantry with us. And if you saw my earlier video, I talked about how we were all mortarmen, machine gunners, or assaultmen. There was one exception in this entire School of Infantry company, and it was Prince. And so they made him an 11, and he was like the stereotypical, like what you would think of the Ugandan soldier at the KBR Chow Hall in Iraq. You know, he's clueless, never picked up private first class. He spent, his first 2-3 years as a private, and then ends up getting kicked out. One point, we're in training, we're in CAX, and we're getting ready to do this hard hit simulated. And so his squad, they'll sneak up there and stack up across the way. And Prince is supposed to be the breach man, and so he gets up to it, and he's clueless, no idea what's going on. And so instead of kicking the door, he just, like he's a Jehovah's Witness, and his team leader takes him and throws Prince out of the way, and then the whole squad just makes entry into the building. And I don't know what happened to him. I think last I heard he was opening up daycare centers in Minnesota. We're at MOUT Town, and there's a stereotype around Weapons Marines, and it's that there's a saying in the Marine Corps, every Marine is a rifleman. Not even every rifleman is a rifleman, and so especially with weapons guys, you'd get a assaultman or maybe a mortarman who's just lost in the sauce, and just sort of along for the ride with this rifle squad. And that's what I wanted to be, a rifleman. And so this was my chance to shine, and I already had a chip on my shoulder because they were already looking at me as just the weapons guy. So we go to MOUT Town, and we're doing breaching. So I'm with Poker's squad, and I didn't know this about myself. I love breaching doors. I was really good at it. I'm a big dude, so they kept setting up this door, over and over and over again in this room, and the objective was we stack up on the door, breach the door, roll into the room, 2-man breach, and clear the room. Left side clear, right side clear, etc. And so I'm kicking the shit out of this door. I am just laying every bit of my 6'2" frame into this thing and just blasting it off the hinges, and just getting violent and just rolling into the room. And so we do one iteration, and we stack up, and I hadn't worked out my form exactly of like where to kick the door, and so I kicked too far in, and these are cheap double pane doors, so I go and I kick, and my foot goes through the door, and so I enter the room, and I'm it comes off the hinge, and I've got the door on my leg, and I just keep rolling in, and I'm just violently clearing the room, left side clear, and then the other guy on the other side, right side clear. It wasn't until we stopped that I just busted out, and I've got this door stuck to my leg, but I'm still just violently moving through the room. And I think that's what finally sold Poker, that I may not be, in his eyes, ever the 11, but he at least knew he could trust me. So, and there was one person I haven't mentioned that was in the squad, Patrick Smith. Patrick was a assaultman. He was from Pennsylvania. We used to call him Tooth Fairy. He had a car accident where he had lost some teeth before he came to the Marine Corps, so he had removable teeth, and so he had this weird sense of humor. He would just pull them out and just act normal like nothing happened, and just, you know, he was a hoot. He unfortunately passed away about 10 years ago. But yeah, that was 1st Platoon. That's who I went downrange with. So before deployment, the tradition is all the boots shave their heads, big bald. And I had that weapons belligerence about me, and so I shaved my head bald in boot camp. I've been wearing a stupid high and tight, you know, waiting for deployment to be over so I can drop my hair level down. And I'm done playing games. We're getting ready to leave, so when we show up to 1st Platoon, instead of having a freshly shaved head, I went and got a Captain Planet style landing strip flat top. So I looked like your stereotypical battalion master guns with I mean, it was like a block O on top of my head and just a straight strip right here. And I think that the seniors appreciated the belligerence of it. And the best part was we didn't get a haircut for like 2 months. So about 2 months later, you know, I'm bearded almost. I got this long, like kid and play style, like flat top. And so everybody started calling me Dolph Lundgren. They said I looked like Ivan Drago from Rocky IV. And so I just embraced it, man. I found a new home in 1st Platoon, and I found what I had been looking for. I didn't mesh with the weapons as much because we were very independent. But then once you got into the rifle squad, and I got with the guys I was going to be spending the next 7 months with, we meshed into a family. We had all these strange personalities that we brought together. There was a lot of dysfunction still, but we were a well-oiled machine. I would have followed those men into hell, literally. And, you know, it wasn't because they had all this crazy training. These were guys who just kept just pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding. So next week, we are going to start telling some deployment stories, getting into the good shit. And unfortunately, I know you guys are going to miss this clean aesthetic wall here, but we're going to start doing some shoots on location. So I got something really big planned for Tuesday's episode. Tuesday, I'm going to paint the picture of the company and the battalion, and then explain the AO that we fell into, and kind of describe that just chaos of being a boot with no idea, you know. I didn't know if we were jumping off the back of the plane and shooting, you know, or if we were going to be a slow roll in, but I fell into a battalion where in 2003 they pushed across the bridge Nazaria. In 2004, AF2, they were in Scandaria fighting. 2005 and 6, they were in Hit, and they were actually relieved by a reserve unit that suffered like 58 casualties in one day. And so these are my seniors, and some of these guys are telling stories about flying in on helicopters and getting shot, you know, not shot, but rounds hitting the side of the helicopter. And, you know, so my Midwest Ohio 19-year-old brain is just trying to, at this point, you know, just survive the machine and get downrange. So, you know, at this point we've survived, and now we're going